Last time I left off, they were obtaining the audio that Remiker slipped up and told Buting that he used to prepare for his testimony. This is the day after, early morning. Jerry Buting, we left off last testimony with the efforts to obtain a search warrant on November 5th for the Avery property, correct? I believe so. And I believe you said that you went with Investigator Wiegert and one of more lawyers to get the warrant itself from Judge Fox? Yes. And then you returned to the Avery property with the warrant at what time? I believe it was 3:30 in the afternoon. And then, what was your assignment after that? Well, there were several discussions about how we were going to go about doing this. Obviously, the scope of our concern and our search was to locate Teresa. And eventually, we put some teams together, some individuals. What we tried to do is coordinate our efforts so that there was a Calumet County officer and a Manitowoc County officer together. And we were assigned different locations to go in to find Teresa. And by that time, you were aware that because of possible appearance of conflict of interest, the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department had turned over lead authority for the investigation to Calumet County, right? Yes. And so, you first were paired with Investigator Steer, I believe, Gary Steer, correct, from Calumet? Yes. And you made your first entry on the warrant to Mr. Avery's trailer? Yes. And that would have been 3:48 p.m. on November 5th, correct? And you did that by force, by kicking in the door, did you not? Yes. And then what did you do when you were inside? We entered. There was two doors. The door to the right, we entered. We entered into a living room. The kitchen is to the right. There's a hallway to the left that leads to the bathroom and another bedroom way on the end. Just went through the residence, checking closets, looking for Teresa or any evidence that Teresa was there. Any clothing, any obvious that would indicate Teresa would be in that residence. Now, so we're clear on the record. You testified yesterday that you had actually, the day before, November 4th, you had been in the very same trailer with consent. Yes. So you had gone through the open doors and closets on the occasion as well, correct? And neither the 4th nor the 5th, then, when you made this first entry, did you see anything that would indicate that Teresa had been there? I did not find Teresa in his trailer. I'm sorry, last part of that. I did not find Teresa in his trailer. In the trailer? Correct. So you were in it only about 10 minutes at that time. Well, I believe you went to the garage. Let's stick with the trailer first. I'm recalling the times. The garage was around little after 4 o'clock. If I told you that we entered the trailer at 3:48 on November 5th and exited at 3:58 p.m., that would be correct, yes. Okay, and then after leaving the trailer, you went immediately into the detached garage that was located next door? Yes. And if I told you that you entered 3:58 p.m. and left the garage at 4:06 p.m., would that fit your recollection? If that's what my report says, that would be accurate. Okay, and again, in the garage, you were looking for Teresa or any evidence that would indicate Teresa had been there. I would say that's pretty accurate, and again, you found neither? Well, I didn't. We didn't find her. There was some small casings on the floor. Did you pick those up at the time? No. Okay, so nothing else? I don't believe so. Alright, now you went back, I assume, and had some other duties elsewhere on the property after that, but then you returned to the trailer, that is, Stephen Avery's trailer at 5:35 p.m. with the dog handler. Did you recall that? No. Do you remember going in the trailer in Stephen Avery's trailer at that point with the dog handler? I did not. Let's see. I'm going to show you an excerpt from the Calumet County Sheriff's Department report, page 89 at the top. Ask you to review the last 3 paragraphs. Are you familiar with that? Yeah, I have discussions about that entry, about that entry on the report that makes reference to myself going into the residence with the dog handler. Does that refresh your recollection on this? No, that wasn't me. So you were saying that this report is in error. This is not my report. My report indicates that the times I was in the residence, for some reason, my name was listed on the individual going into the occasion. That's not the case. Okay, so you at no point entered with a cadaver dog to look around the apartment. Must have been somebody else that documented that. Wasn't me. Were you aware that was done? I don't believe so. Okay, alright. In any event, did you go back in the trailer, that is, Mr. Stephen Avery's trailer again, November 5th, correct? Yes. And I'm talking about after the search warrant was obtained? Correct. And it was approximately 7:30, I believe. Correct, yes. And so we have these times for the record. If you told you that you entered Avery's trailer at 7:30 p.m. and exited at 10:05 p.m., would that fit with your recollection? That sounds right. That's on page 11 of 22. Yep. The court. Was the 10:05 the time? Attorney Fallon, yes. Attorney Buting, yes. 7:30 to 10:05 p.m. Mr. Attorney Buting, now, on the occasion, you also entered with Sergeant Colburn, correct? Yes. And Lieutenant Link, yes. And Calumet County Sheriff's Officer Sergeant Tyson, correct. So there was 4 officers there, of which were Manitowoc Sheriff's Department officers, right? Yes. And the 4 of you spent 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 35 minutes, searching for an entire trailer. Is that right? Yes. And you seized a number of items. Yes. Including bedding, photographs, handcuffs. Do you recall that? I believe so, yes. And you, yourself, were also searching, looking at the walls and the doors and areas like that to see if there might be any evidence of blood as well, correct? That's my job, yes. Okay. And you did locate some items that, at the time, you believe might be bloodstains, later determined not to have any relationship to Teresa Halbach, but you did make note of those, right? There were several areas within the residence that contained a red dried substance. Okay, and you had photographed them. I believe I took some digital photographs of those areas, yes. Okay, then you also took swabs of those areas, yes. And by that, I mean you were taking a you tell me. I don't want to lead you. Tell me what taking a swab means. Well, what you do is you take a sealed, unused, sterile cotton-tipped applicator, remove that from its packaging. Usually what you do is prepare another package for the applicator to go into. You use a sealed distilled water container that you apply a few drops to the end of the sterile cotton-tipped applicator. You then swab the dried liquid substance with the applicator. You place it into your evidence package, you seal it, you label it, now secure it. And then a lot of times, in many cases, you would also take a control swab, which is another swab. You use the same technique. You swab an area in close proximity to the area where you took the first swab from. Alright, and you did that more than one while you were in the Stephen Avery trailer, November 5th, that evening, correct? Yes. And at that point you were looking for trace evidence, right? Yes. Specifically to see whether or not there might be a DNA associated with Teresa Halbach? Well, many of the areas I observed look consistent with blood. Okay, and that's your job, was to do that and to look for that. Absolutely. And you were commanded by a warrant to do that, right? Yes. And so, you did that, you took swabs, you can refer to your report if you need to. It's on page 12. Just to refresh your recollection, but you identified 3 different spots in the wooden frame area surrounding the doorway. Is that right? Yes. Right outside Stephen's bedroom, there's a wooden frame around the door, and along the wall, there's some dried red substance on the wall. Okay, and then you also found some drop of similar dried red substance on the floor of the bedroom, correct? Yes. And you took a swab of that? Yes. And you also found a similar type of red making on the wooden molding on the right side of the bedroom doorway. I'm sorry, right side of the doorway, facing the doorway from the interior of the residence. That's the first one I talked about, the molding around the doorway. Okay. Now you took another one, second to the last full paragraph. Attorney Fallon, Your Honor, I'm going to object because it seems to me that although they were in there doing their search and that does take time, we will certainly concede that I'm not sure that the painstaking detail of what was collected where and how it was collected, other than the fact that the collecting evidence takes time and is detailed work. Beyond that, I'm not sure how that relates to the multiple execution agreement. Mr. Buting, well, I could tighten it up a little bit, but relevant to the terms of, their evidence, whether or not it was complete his search, residence at the time. Well, I agree that I can understand why you have to get it in, but I do not want to be here until midnight either. I think for purpose of the hearing, the level of the detail we're going into right now is probably unnecessary. Mr. Buting, all right. Let me ask you this way. If you recall, do you know how many swabs in total you took of the things that you thought might possibly be bloodstains? I understand later they might prove that they have any relevance, but you were doing your job at the time. How many swabs did you take from the residence on that evening? The entire residence? Yes. I can't give you an exact number. In my estimation, I would probably between 10 and 20. So you found a lot of possible areas to look throughout the trailer, right? Yes. Not just by the doorway, but also in the living room, front door, areas like that. There was areas on the front door. Wasn't sure if it was in paint, blood, other substance. Wasn't sure. I believe I took some swabs in the area. I don't know if there was anything in the living room. It was more in the bathroom and Stephen's bedroom. Now, I was primarily your responsibility. Of the 4 officers in there, was it primarily your responsibility be doing this trace evidence search, or what? We all played a part. We all had a section of the residence, or the bedroom. I've done collections similar to this in the past. The use of these types of kits, I felt very confident in my abilities and worked together. One individual may have taken the collection. The other individual may have prepared the packaging to put the collection in using my equipment. Sure, it made the most sense. So, but you do know whether or not other 3 remaining officers that were in there also collected trace evidence and from the swabs? In the form of swabs, I would say that was either myself or Sergeant Colburn who would have been done the swabs that participated in the collection of those. Okay, now, you also seized, in terms of trace evidence, you also found like a lint roller with some sort of adhesive material on it? Yes. And you seized that. I did not seize that. I used that. Well, I'm sorry. You used that in order to take sample of fibers, hairs, things like that? It's a technique you use. In that case, the carpeting in the Stephen bedroom, I used a lint roller to roll over the carpeting to collect trace hair, trace items of evidence that may have been in the carpeting. Okay, and you went all around the bedroom or all around the bed? Anyway, I think the main area that I used was when you first walk into the bedroom, between the doorway and the bed, near the nightstand, that area. Okay, and then also a number of items, many items were seized. Do you know about how many items were actually taken on that search? It's my job to collect it, search, and then everything was turned over to Calumet County. They did that list. I have no idea. Could it be as many as 50 items? Would that fit your recollection? It could have been. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of those, but I'm sure happy to hear. Thank you. But I did include a vacuum cleaner bag and filter, correct? I believe that was taken. Whether that was taken Saturday or Sunday. I'm not sure. You could look at the bottom of page 22. I'm sorry, page 12 of your report. Last full paragraph, yes. The vacuum bag and filter were removed from the vacuum cleaner on the search. Right? Correct. And the 4 of you searched and contained the long and necessary that evening. Isn't that right? Yes. No one kicked you out of the trailer and said it's time to go. No. Nobody put any kind of time limit on when we should get out of the trailer that night. Is that right? No. That's right. I'm sorry. Okay, then. When we left at 10:05 p.m., he completed a search of the entire trailer. Stephen Avery's trailer, is that right? Well, that search, yes, as far as you knew, at the point you had searched or you had seized everything that had been apparent evidentiary value from Stephen Avery's trailer. No, I know we had some questions about certain things. I mean, at the time, we didn't know a lot. There was magazines, after Pornograph magazine in there, other pictures, there was stuff. We weren't sure at the time whether it was irrelevant or whether we should take it. So, but anything that is obvious evidentiary value that fit within the parameters of the search warrant you took on that night. No, we obviously went back to get a number of other things. There was a shotgun, a gun in the bedroom. Shotgun. There was not a shotgun in the bedroom. There was a muzzle loader and a 22, both owned by Rollie Johnson. Answer my question though. Did you leave that? There's some reason you didn't take the shotgun that night. I don't recall. There had been a question whether to include the search warrant. We had a lot of questions about what we should take and what we shouldn't take. Okay, but in your actual words of your report at 22:05, 10:05 p.m., the officer was completed with the process in the residence and out of it. One of the residents, isn't that what it says? That's what it says. While it was going on, by the way, Sergeant Tyson and the Calumet officer were also doing sort of a written log of all the items and the times that were seized, and were located and all that. All right, alongside of us. Okay, all right. Now the next morning, this is November 6th, did you return to the Avery's property? Yes. About what time? I believe I arrived about 8 o'clock a.m. Okay, and were you assigned certain duties again? Yes. And who gave you those assignments? Well, again, we met with Investigator Wiegert, Agent Fassbender, Lieutenant Link. We were all there involved in the discussions, and there was this decision made to process the garage, and we made assignments, and would participate in the search, and went and did. My question is, who made those assignments, or did you sort of volunteer for it? We all did, depending on who was there, who the personnel was. We had the equipment, who worked well together. It was a cooperative effort amongst all of us making those decisions. All right. And on occasion, I had to say in that. Wiegert had to say in that. We all did. And on the occasion, the team that was formed, I'm sorry, I take that back. It was the same team of Manitowoc officers, correct? Yourself? Yes. Lieutenant Link, Sergeant Colborne? Yes. But a different Calumet officer this time, Deputy Kacharski, was assigned to go along with you. Yes. His responsibility was primarily he was going to be taking custody as well as any of the items, correct? And when you went back to the Avery property, you did not go into Mr. Avery's trailer residence at the time, did you? Not initially, no. Instead, you went into the garage, detached garage next to it? Yes. Which you had not. You had entered only once before for about 7 minutes on the day before, correct? And if you told you that you entered the detached garage in Mr. Avery's residence at 8 a.m., then left at 9:47 a.m., would that fit with your recollection? That sounds accurate. So the four of you, the four officers, were inside the garage searching for an hour and 47 minutes, correct? And you can tell me how big the garage is? Approximate estimate? About a standard 2-car garage, okay? And the four of you went through the garage, thoroughly looking for, again, any evidence of Teresa Halbach or evidence that would fit with the sought in the warrant, correct? And no one kicked you out of the garage at any time in particular, no? You were able to stay as long as you wanted, yes? And you did see some items, including some .22 caliber shells, correct? And also some, again, possible blood stains that you noted on the floor in the various areas, correct? And again, you did the same type of process of collecting them with swabs, sealing them for possible DNA tests and sort of thing, correct? And I recognize, again, that those didn't turn out like you thought they might, but nevertheless, you were doing your job and were looking for possible blood of Teresa Halbach. Is that right? I guess I was. If it was blood, it was collecting, and it was, if not able to determine that, okay, whether it was even blood or at all, correct? Okay, now you finished searching the garage at 9:47 a.m. You were right next door to Stephen Avery's trailer, just a few feet away, right? Yes. Did you go back in the trailer at that time? No. In fact, you didn't go back into the trailer until, that is, Stephen Avery's trailer, until about 12:25 p.m., correct? That same day, November 6th? Yes. And you went back because you were asked to go, is that right? I believe so. By who? I'm guessing those conversations took place when Investigator Wiegert and Agent Fassbender. And if I told you that they entered at 12:25 p.m., left at 12:48 p.m., this is Mr. Stephen Avery's trailer on November 6th, would that fit your recollection? Sounds about right. And on the occasion you seized, you went back to get the weapons you saw? We earlier talked about some of the questions we had. Obviously, this was a reference to some of the items that observed in the first search. We went back to collect some additional things. some magazines. I think you mentioned photographs, the weapon above the bed. I believe there was some additional bedding in the other room within the residence. There may have been carpet, shampoo that was taken also. And again, you had so much time as you wanted in that trailer on that occasion. No one kicked you. Is that right? Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of searches to do that day. We had our work cut out for ourselves. So I wouldn't say we were rushing, but we knew there was other places that needed to be processed. So, and again, the officers were entered Mr. Avery's trailer at 12:25 p.m. November 6th were the same ones that gone into the garage. That is, yourself, Jeff Remiker, Lieutenant Link, Sergeant Colborn, all from Manitowoc, as well as Calumet County's Deputy Tokarski. Is that right? I believe so, yes. All four of you were back in there. I believe so. And did you, at any time after that, go back into Mr. Avery's or detached garage next to Mr. Avery's residence? Mr. Fallon. Second time, I'm going to oppose the objection here. I'm listening to the line of questioning here. It seems remarkable similar, if not identical, to the questions and information obtained from Lieutenant Link in yesterday's call. So this does seem to me duplication. I'm not quite sure how this adds up to the equation. I mean, it's quite obvious that the entrance to the residence on a number of occasions while conducting overall search. So I'm not quite sure what accomplishing with Detective or Investigator Remiker's echoing of Lieutenant Leaks testified to. Actually, I think we're done with this. This was going to be my final question. Did you go back into the garage yourself? No. All right. Thank you, your court. Mr. Fallon, are you going to conduct cross? I am. Thank you. Cross-examination by Attorney Fallon, Dave Remiker. How long have you been an evidence collector or evidence technician? And they are sometimes referred to? Well, I don't recall when I attended the State Crime Lab Evidence Tech School. I would guess that's at least 6-7 years ago would be, I guess. All right. Is evidence in the search for evidence, particularly trace evidence, time-consuming? It's very detail-oriented. You have to be very careful. Yes, definitely. Does it take time? It takes a lot of time. All right. And why does it take time? Well, when you're looking for trace evidence, it doesn't stand out. You have to go to look for it. You have to go to find it. You have to be on your hands and knees. And then when you are collecting those things, you are dealing with very small samples. You're using tweezers, using small patchy material. You're also using cotton tip applicators that you have to apply sterile water to. You're doing collection. You're doing a controlled sample. You're packaging it. You're just sealing it. You're labeling it. Each item, there's a process. You follow it to make sure that evidence is secure and as pure as you can collect it. All right. So in effect, first of all, you have to spend time to find trace evidence, right? Definitely. And then there's an entirely separate process of collecting the evidence, correct? Yes. And the collection is sometimes painstakingly slow. It can be. Sometimes it's rather quick. For instance, if you are just securing a gun from the wall, that takes about a matter of a moment or two. Perhaps a minute or two, collect it, log it in, and then secure it. But perhaps, as opposed to looking for fiber evidence or possible blood spots, takes more time, doesn't it? Definitely. And as if I understand it, you are required to basically, once you find an item, you deal with the item. You log it, you picture it, and you take a picture. You collect it, you secure it, you label it before you go on to the next item. That's a one item at a time. Correct. And that's to ensure that integrity of the piece of evidence you are collecting, without a doubt. As a matter of fact, especially when you're looking for trace evidence and things like that, there are environmental factors that affect the collection of trace evidence. Yes. For instance, would you say it was easier to find the trace evidence natural daylight as opposed to artificial incandescent lights? Natural daylight is always advantageous. So, and your recollection was that you yourself took anywhere from 10 to 20 swabs. Each one had it individually processed? Yes. Alright, as the council suggested, there could have been perhaps 50 or more items secured that evening. That's possible. Alright, and each one of you had individually found, right, correct, and pictured and preserved, and then they were collected, correct? Correct package, labeled, inserted number, date, time, collection, everything before your next item would be processed. Definitely. Alright, now with respect to the assignment, is it true, is it not, that although there was a great deal of give and take discussion amongst the investigators, now, I just want to stop here. I don't know why Jerry Buting didn't push more on the fact that Remiker is, if you read Queso, he's the one that enters the trailer with the dog. But he didn't. And Jerry Buting just skipped right over it. Alright, now, with respect to the assignments, the true, withstanding that investigator Remiker, Special Agent Fastway were in charge of the overall investigation, correct? Definitely. So in terms of corporation effect, in other words, they sought other ideas, the input, correct? Yes. But the decisions in terms of what was done and when and how allocation of resources, there was decisions made by Remiker and Fassbender, correct? Based upon your input, available resources, are you exactly right? Attorney Fallon, that's all, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Buting? Just one or two. Mr. Fallon asked you a number of questions about what you were trained to do or what you might do in certain cases. How long does it take to collect trace evidence in general, correct? Yes. But in this case, on November 5th, in those 2.5 hours while you were in their trailer, you did in fact get down on your hands and knees, right, with the lint roller? Yes. And to collect a swab off the bathroom floor? Correct. And you were doing all those things that you would normally do to find trace evidence, correct? Yes. And you are a thorough officer, aren't you? I believe so. And you did as thorough of a complete job as you could that night? I believe so. And Mr. Fallon mentioned that Agent Fassbender and Investigator Remiker were in charge. Investigator Remiker? Remiker, I'm sorry. I say that half the time. Is that right? Well, yeah, they was assigned as the lead investigators, correct? So they were the ones who, well, let me ask you this. Lieutenant Sipple, are you familiar with him? Maybe I'm pronouncing his name wrong. I've heard his name. If I would see him, I would probably recognize him. I don't. Lieutenant Bo? Brett Bo? I think it is, but now you know, or Bo. I'm sure I've seen him. I would recognize him. So neither of them were directing you or advising you what to do during the entire week so that Avery property was seized. Mr. Brett Bo spent 37 hours straight on the Avery's property without leaving. Side note. I'm sure it was seen, would have recognized him. No, either of them were directing you or advising you what to do during the entire week so that the Avery property was seized. If I'm correct, I believe those individuals had a lot to do with the security or watching over the property. Some of the lawyers, the security they had out there. Okay. They would have been in the command post area that was set up. No, they would have been parked right next to the Stevens trailer in a squad car or standing outside the trailer providing security or watching over the residents. There were several layers of security out there. Are you talking about lieutenants, those Calumet County officers? Okay, but my question is, were they involved in the direction or decision making of the search? In particular, the search of Mr. Avery's trailer? I don't believe so, no. That was Remiker and Fassbender, collectively, with your cooperative decisions? Yes. Attorney Buting, thank you. The court, anything else? Attorney Fallon, I just have one question. Mr. Fallon, what did you mean when you said we had a lot of searches to do that day in response to counsel's question on Sunday's question? Well, we had about 37 acres, thousands of cars, residents, shops, outbuildings. There was a lot to do. All right, thank you. Mr. Buting, one last. Further redirection examination. Do you know how many officers, law enforcement officers, were out there on the 40-acre parcel besides yourself? When? During the week? No idea. As many as 100 could have been. So there are many others available to do searches besides yourself and other foursome that was doing these searches, correct? Based on our discussion, based on our confidence and our abilities, based on our experience working together, based on the access to equipment and being comfortable with that equipment and being able to use the equipment properly. Cherry Buting, Judge, he's not answering my question. Would you please answer the question I asked, which is, I was getting to that. There were officers available. They were searching in other areas besides just the four of you. There may have been, but it didn't make sense for those individuals to do those searches. To do what searches? Off the residence, the garage, the buildings. Didn't make sense for them. For anyone but you four to search any of the buildings on that property. Well, you obviously want to use evidence techs, people who are trained to do those types of searches and collection of evidence, and that is limited. Well, plenty of evidence techs out there during that week. Did you not? No. Well, you had the crime lab. They showed up with 2 people on Saturday. Okay, you had, which one of the photographers only? You had DCI. Fassbender may have been only one out there Saturday, but during the week, as it went on, up to November 9th, I was only there until Sunday night. Cherry Buting. All right. Thank you. All right. You're excused. Thank you, witness. Defense may call the next witness. Yeah, so this is Remiker's testimony. I don't know why Cherry Buting didn't press on the false report of Remiker entering Stephen Avery's trailer with Brutus and Fassbender. And if you go back and read the trial transcripts, Fassbender indicates that Brutus made no alerts when they were in Stephen's trailer. But then when Julie Kramer, the dog handler, is cross-examined, she says a completely different story. I mean, you read Queso and then you look at the actual facts of things that happen, and nothing makes fucking sense. None of it. No matter where you start. But I'm going to continue reading everybody's testimony. I figured I'd start with Dave Remiker because it involves the piss poor audio we received from Manitowoc. Yes, it was 8 months after the fact that they found out about it, and Fallon playing dumb like he didn't even know. It was a crock of shit. And the fact that before Stephen Avery's actual trial, this is just the pre-trial stuff, they did a mock trial before they did the trial. Colborn, all of them. So, I don't know. The more you know, the more you understand. Y'all have a great day, and I'll catch y'all next time.